All right, got the sweet setup here. The framing looks good. The lighting looks great. All right, let's focus up and get our shot. So focus on the near end and... Okay, that gets everything in front end in focus, but not the back end. That's not good. All right, let's try focusing back here and see if we can get things in focus. That gets the back, but not the front. Oh, geez, what are we gonna do? If only there was a way to get two things in focus at the same time. Maybe. So this is actually a problem we face a lot in toy photography. The problem is you want to get really close to the toys because they're small in scale. However, when we do that, our depth of field, which is the amount of it that's in focus, front to back, gets really, really small. And that means we can't get the entire scene front to back in focus. So we have to do several techniques. One technique is to move everything farther back and zoom in. Another way is to do something called focus stacking. And what focus stacking is it allows you to take frames that are focused at different points, and then in Photoshop, combine them together so all the focus bits get added together so you get one larger depth of field. So that's the technique is very powerful in toy photography, so I'm going to cover that here. But before I do, let me explain exactly what happens with the depth of field by pointing my camera at a ruler. I should add that to capture all of this stuff, my camera is connected to this screen here, which is being captured by this GoPro in this perfectly excellent setup here, because I am a legitimate YouTube professional. So to demonstrate, I put a ruler in front of my lens, so the 0 centimeter mark is right at the lens, and I took some shots to demonstrate the effects of focal length and distance on the depth of field. The first shot is with f2.8, and at the 1 centimeter mark, you can see that the depth of field is less than 2 millimeters, which is really microscopic. If I focus farther down the ruler, I only get to about 16 millimeters at f2.8, which for almost any scene, that's not going to allow anything in focus. If I increase the aperture to the maximum this lens allows, which is f16, the distant depth of field actually becomes somewhat decent. It's 70 millimeters, but that's too far away from the lens for this shot. And if I bring it back closer to the 1 centimeter mark, still only has a depth of field of 8 millimeters, which is not enough. So we're going to have to use a process called focus stacking. And how does focus stacking work?
Modern technology, William.
Whoa. So focus stacking works in 2 steps, and the first step is to capture the frames. The way I do it is I start by focusing on the nearest part of my image and then work my way backwards until I get to the farthest part of my image. As I work my way back, it's important to set the focal point so that you're overlapping the depth of fields. So you always have some part of the frame in focus, and you don't miss any areas, otherwise the second step will cause some blurry parts to be left. I set my camera to the flexible spot mode so I can easily control where the focal point of my camera is. Then I start with the front, which is the frying pan, take a shot, and then I move farther back, which is probably the front of his hand. I take another shot. Then because this depth of field is shallow, I'll move back to like the back of his hand, his palm area. And then I'll move up maybe towards his nose and then take a shot there. And then finally, I will put it on his ear, which is the farthest back, and take a shot there. That should give me full coverage front to back and have 5 images that I can work with in the next step. Yay! There's many ways of doing the focus stacking in software, but the way I like to do it is by importing the files into Lightroom, which I've already done here. And you can see I have the 5 files starting at the beginning with the frying pan and working my way back with the focal stuff
all the way back to his ear. As you go from the front focus on the way back, you notice that the framing slightly changes. And the reason for that is in the camera lenses, there's a lens specifically designed for focusing. It moves slightly back and forward in the lens body to fine-tune the focusing, and that changes the framing slightly. So what you want to do is whenever you're doing focus stacking is give yourself a bit of extra room on the sides and compose for the closest focusing point that you're going to use, because otherwise you're going to run out of space. Okay, so once we have our files selected, we can just shift click all of them, right click, and then go to edit in, and then open as layers in Photoshop and click that, and they will all load up into Photoshop. So we're starting to load those files in as layers. It takes a little bit of time. All right, so we've got these files loaded in. We have the 5 files on the side here, all as separate layers. If for some reason you don't want to use Lightroom, you can also import the files by just going to File and Scripts and load files into Stack. And following that dialog, you'll be able to bring the files in and end up with this exact layout. But now we have all these files ready to go. All we have to do is select all of them, go to Edit, and then Auto Align Layers, and then just hit the projection auto and click on OK. And what this will do is this will even out any discrepancies, any camera shake or whatever that may have happened while we capture the frames, and then line everything up nicely. And then we need to merge all of these layers to get all the focusing merged together. So we'll go to Edit and then Auto Blend Layers, and then we'll select Stacked Images, leave everything else default and click on OK. This can take some time to go through, but what it's doing is it's finding all the spots of the images that are in focus and grabbing all the various focus areas and smooshing them all together into one layer that will have all of the in focus parts in that one image. And if we've done our focus stacking right and done our photography stage right, then that means the entire image should be in focus. And indeed, that's what we're left with. We have a screen here that has one frame that has everything in focus. We have the front of the frying pan all the way back to the back of his ear is all in focus, and then we can post-process from there. But we now have maximized our focal areas and got the actual image that we wanted to get. So that's it for this episode. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please hit subscribe to see all my content that's coming out. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.